Hello, I'm Adrienne. Thanks for joining me. So today I wanted to talk to you about, we just recently passed through Valentine's Day, and I was incredibly sick on Valentine's Day. Otherwise I would have done the video on that day. But the reason I was sick is because I had done this energy session that I wanted to share with you about on trauma bonding, and how when we love people or fall in love with them and have relationships with them, that a lot of times one of the things that might happen is we, without being completely aware of it, we do this trauma bonding thing with them. And so wanted to kind of lead you through a meditation to help clear that out if this is something that you feel like you might do. So whenever you're in relationship, there's only certain things that you can learn because you're in relationship and you get to interact with somebody on that level. And that makes a really big difference in terms of seeing the reflection of who you are and learning certain things that when you're not in a relationship, it's just harder to learn that way. And then when you're not in a relationship, there's only certain things you can learn about yourself, because when you're in the reflection of another person, sometimes that also causes distractions, and you meet a whole different level of fears, a whole different level of yourself, a whole different level of your peace and your inner connection when you're not in relationship. And there's a certain level of freedom and in being in your own space and your own feelings and emotions that has its own beauty to it. Recently I was looking at an article actually from I don't know, Hermione Granger on Harry Potter, and she's about 30 now. And she really hasn't been in any significant relationships up to this point. And so she was being interviewed about that. And she's like, I'm in a partnership with myself. And it's just one of the best partnerships I can, really relate to right now. Now, whenever I'm ready to be with somebody in a different type of partnership, I'll do that. But for now, I'm in a partnership with myself. And she's like, the reason she likes saying it that way is because it really honors the fact that she's not alone. Oh, I'm not in a relationship, as if that's the only thing that identifies you. I'm not, I'm alone, or I'm not in a partnership. And sometimes that gives people the idea that maybe they're broken, that they're alone, that they're not letting love in, things like that. But she's like, whenever I say I'm in partnership with myself, which she's like, it really causes me to acknowledge that and to own it, and to really honor that relationship and to settle into it for what it is, and to really be present to it for what it is. So I really like the way she was saying that. So, when it comes to love, whenever, if you're, there's this one technique, the connecting with your own true presence, that I'd highly recommend, because if you're in relationship, I would say do the one heart breath with your own higher presence, because it's going to really escalate and help you to have a better quality relationship. And if you're not in a relationship, doing a one heart breath with your higher presence is also going to help you to elevate your capacity for loving and being loved. And whether you're in a relationship or not in a relationship, the key to it is knowing that you're deeply, divinely, unconditionally loved and accepted as you are. And when that energy comes to you, knowing that you're unconditionally loved as you are, and accepted, then what happens is you tend to not project that need. It's one of the basic things of our humanity, is to feel unconditionally loved and accepted. And so whenever you're present to that within your own inner presence, when you're alone, you don't feel like you're alone. You feel like you are being unconditionally loved and accepted. And if you're with somebody, you're not projecting that need onto another person, and therefore causing sort of a misaligned energy with that either, which will, it's oftentimes coming from an attachment fear, or we could even say like a trauma bond. In other words, you might have traumas out of your past, or unresolved energies, or things with your parents, or sometimes these trauma bonds, I think, even come from on a soul level, in our spirit, from past lives even. Whether you've been abandoned, or somebody has died, or you've been rejected, or just a number of reasons, that can happen, right? So it kind of helps to clean all of that up, and it brings you back into a state like this really beautiful vortex of love within your own being that you're fully responsible for, fully honoring. And at this point, in not being in a relationship, at this point, I've really started taking account of my life and the people I've been with and how I've affected them. and how they've affected me, and having tremendous love for any of my significant relationships, but also noticing how, it might have played out, certain pains or certain attachment fears. And really what I've noticed significantly at the end of each of the relationships that I've been in that were significant is coming back around and noticing where that trauma bond ended up playing out, like no matter what we did, along the way. So, and then taking responsibility for that, really not wanting to generate or create that again, if at all possible. So it's just a really clean energy. And I think the opposite effect happens with people. I see a lot of people, particularly in their spiritual journey, where they have had relationships and they've had heartbreaks and they've had their deepest traumas played out, and then they just don't want to get into a relationship again. So some people jump from relationship to relationship, right? So like a serial monogamist, where you are going from relationship to relationship. Some people just want to randomly date, not to feel alone, right? But then some people, to the opposite side of the spectrum, maybe don't want to be in a relationship at all and will go years without being in one. And that might be great if that's your choice and you're being conscious about it. But I find that in talking to some people, it's not that because they're a high empath and they're spiritually conscious and they don't want to just keep setting up the same pattern, they're making a choice. I just don't ever want to be in that situation again. I don't ever want to put somebody else through it. I don't want to ever put myself through it. But then they're missing out on what you can learn by being in relationship, right? So, whether it's one side of the spectrum of being a serial monogamist and never quite ever being alone, or choosing to be alone and going years without being in partnership, sort of by default, because you just don't want to be in that kind of trauma bond or pain again, or cause somebody else pain, etc. You've got these two things going on here, right? And so one of the remedies to that, including whether you're in the relationship or you're choosing not to be in a relationship, is doing this one heart breath with your own higher presence. And let's just go in and do a really kind of powerful meditation with some of the archangels to help clear the trauma bonds that maybe are going on and causing these types of relationships in our life, and just begin to really focus on clearing that out and then come into a one heart breath to bring it all back together again.